Lots of action from the Supreme Court today, with the highest court in the land reinstating President Trump's travel ban while it agrees to review the case in the fall. Joining us now, Tim O'Brien, an attorney who has covered the Supreme Court for more than 2 decades, and he's also the author of Murder at the Supreme Court, Lethal Crimes and Landmark Cases. Thank you for joining us.
A pleasure, Heather.
It has been a busy day. Your thoughts on the decision involving the travel ban first?
Well, it is, just as the Trump administration is proclaiming, a big victory for them. The court not only reinstated the travel ban, allows it to go forward with a few limited exceptions. Its opinion, only 13 pages, is probably a blueprint for what we're going to get down the road. The court is going to hear formal arguments probably the first week of October. We'll get a decision a few months after that. But everything in this opinion today suggests that this travel ban is going to fly. The only question is whether there could be some exceptions for those who have a bona fide connection, refugees with a bona fide connection with a person or an entity in the United States. That's the only exception the court acknowledged today.
Was there anything in there that you were surprised was included and anything that was not included? I know some of the comments that President Trump had made during the campaign, that was not included.
Well, what actually struck me was that not a single justice of the 9 had a kind word to say for the lower court injunctions, which only emphasizes how strong the administration's hand is in this case. It also talked at some length about the authority that the president has, that the government has, in the interest of national security when it comes to immigration. And the president does have extraordinary authority here. What struck me is that also under Article 1 of the Constitution, Congress also has authority in immigration matters, more so than the president. Congress, if it's so wanted, could probably do away with this policy. No indication that that's to be. I think some credit has to go to Rudolph Giuliani, the former governor of New York, who talked to the president, advised the president on this. You may recall the president initially said that he wanted to ban all Muslims from the United States, and Governor Giuliani said, oh, we can't do that. What can we do? Narrowly tailored this statute in such a way that the Supreme Court seems ready to embrace it.
Yeah, travel pause 2.0, some people are referring to it as. So a religion case that's specifically important. It was in Missouri. It was whether or not Missouri can supply a public benefit to a church school.
I love this case. A very tough case, much tougher than it seems. What happens is the state of Missouri was resurfacing playgrounds around the state. The Trinity Lutheran Church's playground qualified in every respect except it's operated by a church. And Missouri, like more than half the states, has the constitutional amendment that says no taxpayer dollars go to any church or any religious controlled entity. Well, here, how does it affect somebody's free exercise of religion not to have a safer playground? The church said it violates our free exercise clause, the free exercise clause. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, it seemed to be bald discrimination against religion. The Supreme Court said in this case, the fact that the playground had nothing to do with religion may have been its saving grace. 3 justices indicated they would go further and allow even more government funding for church-related activities. But this decision is very important. It calls into question those amendments in the other states. Just how broad are they, and what kind of limitations can they put on government funding for churches? And
there were 3 other cases involving immigration in one way or another. Your thoughts on those?
Well, you know, actually, I didn't study those as carefully as I should have. Had the big news out of the court today are the religion cases and, of course, the travel ban. This is always a great day at the court. When the court announces the last day of the term, the court announces 5 or 6 decisions. We've been focusing on each one of them. They all come down at the same time. We're kind of lost.
And in terms of the Trump administration, this would be a big win for them, as you mentioned at the top of our interview.
It is a huge win. It's one that will reverberate down the road. I think we're going to see it even further. The court will say more about this in October, and it is everything I think Donald Trump could reasonably have asked for.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate your time today.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
To another major story now involving the Trump administration and the Russia investigation, with CNN now imposing new rules on its people and their coverage. Howard Kurtz, Fox News media analyst and anchor of Media Buzz, joins us now with more. What's going on, Howard?
Hi, John. Well, CNN did do a good retraction and a policy after a very bad mistake. And here's what happened. The CNN.com story tried to link Anthony Scaramucci, he's a very influential outside advisor to President Trump, to a Russian investment fund, and claimed that back in January, Scaramucci had discussed a possible lifting of U.S. sanctions against Moscow with an official from that fund in a secret meeting, except that there was no secret meeting. Scaramucci told me over the weekend that he had given a speech at Davos, and later in a restaurant, the official from this Russian fund came up to him to say hello, brief conversation, no discussion of sanctions. And by the way, Scaramucci is a former hedge fund guy who's been named to a diplomatic post by the president, says he's never done any business with Russia, and the only time he ever visited the country was as a 25-year-old student. Now, when CNN issued a statement saying that that story did not meet its editorial standards, Scaramucci accepted the apology, but he told me, I was disappointed the CNN story ran. It was a lie.
All right. Howard Kurtz, I thought we were going to hear something from him there, but
I wasn't tossing to a soundbite, but as you mentioned, John, if I can just kind of tag this, CNN now requiring any story related to Russia can't be published on its website until 2 senior editors approve it. This is an effort to prevent this kind of embarrassment from happening. You know, I've done a lot of investigative reporting, and this was a pretty thin story to begin with. Anthony Scaramucci, at least until he takes this diplomatic post, will continue to be a guest here frequently on Fox News. Thanks very much. See you again, Howie.